And I would love for Dana to introduce our speaker today.
Thank you very much. Kathy Stewart joined the Red Cross in 2024, first as a volunteer writing blogs, and then as her current role as a recruitment specialist. She is passionate about raising awareness about the Red Cross and in matching those interested in volunteering with the perfect role. Outside of work, she continues her quest to create a pollinator garden when she's not playing tennis. And with that, I give the floor to Kathy Stewart.
Hey, thank you. Appreciate the introduction. Let me share my screen. So you should be seeing it now. Thanks for giving me a thumbs up. I love when people give me a visual cue. It's lonely here sometimes when you're speaking. Well, thank you for the introduction, the kind words, and thank you for the welcoming banners, the Red Cross. Thank you, and thanks for mentioning, those for whom you've had experience with the Red Cross. Really appreciate that. Always love hearing stories. And I hear a lot of stories when I go out in the community from people who've had some connection with the Red Cross in some way. So thank you for that. So I know it's been a busy time, as Frank has said, the last week or so, because we've had some weather. But what I want to do today is just give you super high level overview of the Red Cross. I'm sure you are familiar, as you mentioned already, but I'm always kind of surprised at the things that people don't know that we do. So I want to make sure I hit some highlights with that. And also just present some information about different volunteer roles. I know that your service organization, you are already very busy people, but I'm hoping that you probably know some friends or family or neighbors who might want to be a volunteer. So I hope that you hear something today that maybe will get you excited and thinking of somebody that might benefit from working with us in a volunteer capacity. So we have a similar mission to yours. We're action oriented, just like you are. And ours is just basically, it's very simple, eliminating human suffering. And we do that through the power of donors and also volunteers. We have extremely generous donors. They fund so much of what we do, 99% of what we do. And our workforce is made up of pretty much volunteers. I think 90% is the amount of volunteer workforce we have. So all of this really was brought home to me this week, especially as I, worked amongst folks, my colleagues who are getting ready for a potential storm. So we put that in motion through core values, and I know that values are something meaningful to your organization as well. So it won't surprise you that we have, similar ones. But I want to call out one of these in particular, the collaboration aspect. We've been working this week again in preparation for the extreme weather, really collaborating with agencies, with all different kinds of partners to consider things like putting up shelters. So it takes really all of us, and it takes a lot of true partnerships to help counties that we work in become more resilient. Working together, being able to make sure that things are organized so when disasters do strike, that we all work together and we do that smoothly. So this is just super high level again slide about some things we were able to do in the last fiscal year because of those many volunteers that we have, the many hours that were donated, and also the donors giving so generously. We do a lot of things, of course, in response to disasters, but we do plenty of things, as you see here on the slide, kind of to head things off as best we can and help people feel like they're prepared as they go into thinking there might be weather-related disasters, particularly. I know that's on all of our minds this week. So again, as I mentioned, I want to hit some highlights about some of the various volunteer opportunities. And I thought I would begin with disaster cycle services just because of the hurricane that was impending this past week. I thought you might like to hear about this first. And I wanted to just call out, this is a slide that I grabbed a photo from a couple of social posts. This was our team in action. We immediately, once we started getting notification of the weather, we have what we call a national sync call every morning. And that's where all the different chapters across the country come together and we hear about needs. They prioritize at a national level, and then they decide what action needs to be taken. So here, interestingly, depending on where disasters like hurricanes are intended to strike, we have to think about kind of making a headquarters in South Carolina. So for Imelda, it was Darlington, and luckily the racetrack donated some space. So you'll see our team here, Darlington Raceway, Walk of Champions. So this was our team that assembled on very short notice, coming from lots of different areas to make sure that things were in place to launch the relief that we, may be needed. And luckily, as you all mentioned, Imelda took a turn, which we're all pretty grateful for, but doesn't mean we weren't ready for it. And we are still in the midst of kind of unplugging from all those disaster efforts today, as a matter of fact. Our folks are still deployed, some of them wrapping things up. And so this is kind of at our upstate office in Greenville. This chapter office, I took a picture. We meet frequently, but Thursdays are a day that we often gather to collaborate. And this is the room where it happens, our ready room. And so a lot of the folks you see in this room are people who deploy regularly, whether it's within the state or across the country. And anybody who wants to deploy, and I'm starting with deploying first because a lot of folks, especially after hurricanes kind of impact our area, we actually get a lot of people saying, hey, next time something happens, I want to do something. And so often people are very interested in deployment. So you'll see that there are some requirements associated with that. That's true of all of our roles. People can decide what kind of deployment they are interested in and what kind of time commitment they'd like to make. And they also have, as you can imagine, training specific to whatever role people might be interested in. So it varies. And those who want to deploy are deployed by their home region. They can't just decide, hey, I want to go to California. It's based on priorities and needs, and that's determined usually at the national level. So, for other kinds of disasters, I call this kind of the boots on the ground specialist because this kind of disaster work, it can be a hurricane for sure, but it also could be something like a flood, it could be tornadoes. And so there are probably still folks assembled down in Charleston in case flooding is impactful, even though the hurricane is turning away. And honestly, the most common disaster are home fires. Home fires happen every day, and it's probably the ones that our teams respond to most frequently. And so when folks are sent out to any kind of disaster, oh, it could be things like hazard spill. I mean, there's all kind of things that can happen. They're usually sent out in pairs to provide what we call immediate support. And most often, initially, that's comfort in the form of emotional comfort, but also any kind of immediate needs, whether it's food, toiletries, helping people, with prescriptions, with getting glasses or things that got left behind for whatever reason. So it's again to meet those immediate needs. And our volunteers have told me before, this is probably the most meaningful role that we have. Well, there's so many, but this one is especially impactful because sometimes they meet people who've lost everything. And so after disaster, after emergency response, we are the first folks on the scene usually. So you'll see again, there are age requirements, training requirements, and requirements of being on call. But again, very meaningful work, very important work. And we're doing a national campaign right now that we call Shelter Heroes because with any disaster, one of the first things people need is that ability to feel safe and just feel like they can breathe for a moment. And so shelter, we call them shelter associates, but we call them shelter heroes because you can't do anything without shelters. So we've got lots of different roles associated with putting up a shelter, whether it's people who prefer kind of an on the kind of behind the scenes on the job logistical role, operations, making sure equipment's ready, making sure we have agreements with food vendors. So there are lots of different aspects to coordinate, as you can imagine. So there are definitely some behind the scenes role. But then there's also those folks who really enjoy working with people. And so they're the folks who maybe help with feeding, with comfort, with making sure people who are attending the shelter have information about next steps, how they can get back on the path to having a normal life after disaster strikes. And so again, you'll see deployment specifics, shifts. Um, there's definitely training associated with these roles. So just wanted to again call out these first because these are what's important right now during hurricane season for sure. And as folks kind of, get back on their feet and are thinking about, getting out of shelters, again, on that path to resuming their normal lives, we have another role that I call, that we call rather, recovery client care caseworker. And these are people, this can be remote, but these are people who check in with those who've been impacted by disaster. So they help folks find out what agencies within a given community can help them with meeting their recovery needs, long-term recovery activities, helping them find resources, and checking in with them a couple times a week for, usually about a month or so till they sort of get back, on their feet and can move out of the shelter and get going and find housing after disasters happen. And then, as you can imagine, along with that, I'm highlighting again very disaster focused roles right now because that's where the biggest need is right now. But we also have a team of folks who are really interested in providing emotional, spiritual, mental health care. And you can imagine again, I don't think anybody has any trouble imagining why that might be necessary to both people impacted and staff who helps them as well. So we're always on the lookout for folks who have some kind of professional licensure in these fields and who are willing to donate their time to meet those needs because they are also equally big needs. So I wanted to pause for a minute. That's the response kind of side of the disaster team, but there's an equally important side that's all about preparedness because what we want to do, while I've highlighted the fact that we respond to things like fires and emergencies, we really want to help people, individuals, families, businesses become aware of how they can prepare to kind of get ahead of things. So if you follow us on social media, you'll probably have noticed that we have a lot of tips out there right now, how to prepare for hurricanes, for disasters. And everybody internally at our chapter office, myself included, I literally bought a bigger, better flashlight this past weekend because I thought during Helene, mine was woefully inadequate. But we do a lot of things in the community as well. This is an example of fire safety preparedness because we often do kind of collaboration with area emergency service folks, fire safety folks, firemen, fire departments, and do what we call blitzes. This is one that I attended out near Columbia, South Carolina, and we rely on the fire department and emergency services folks to kind of pinpoint an area of need. And then we team up, volunteers, staff, and emergency services, and we go out in the community. We test fire alarms. Sometimes we install them. Sometimes we replace batteries, whatever, is needed. And all of this happens because of the generosity of donors funding these materials. So we ride around, we walk around with a little wagon full of batteries, materials, and we also talk with residents about tips for fire safety, making a plan to exit a building, particularly if they're children. So this is very important work, and it's also really fun. We had the best time doing this, and people were very, very appreciative. So we do kind of a similar thing, but for the younger set. So this was an event last year that I attended with, again, all volunteers here, going out into communities. And this is a school community, and we do presentations about fire safety with second graders. And the hope is that they'll go home and we have these books donated, again, through the generosity of donors. So we share that story, we talk about fire safety. And we send those books home with these students so they can have some conversations with their grown-ups about fire safety and get those conversations going. So that's the disaster line of service. We refer to departments as lines of service. We have several. Another big one that people obviously associate with the Red Cross is blood, biomedical services, giving blood, transporting blood. So you'll see me and my sidekick, Julianne, here giving blood because we have blood drives all over the state, very, all year round, all the time, because blood is a very, very big need. Someone needs blood every 2 seconds. So we are always looking for sources for blood drives, people to donate, and also make sure that people donating know how much we appreciate it. So we've got a couple of roles associated with that. I live in the upstate, and some of these roles are not available where I live because we do not have a site where you could just walk up anytime and give blood, but we do at other parts of the state. And so we always want people to help folks who are coming to give blood to make sure they're okay afterward, to thank them profusely, and make sure that they have a really good experience so they'll want to come back and donate again. So this is a very important customer service kind of role that we rely on heavily. And then also we have folks who transport that blood once it's collected to area hospitals. And I did a ride along with one of the gentlemen who does this service in Columbia, South Carolina. And I said, "Hey, so what do you like about this role?" And he liked doing something meaningful was the first thing he said. He liked getting out of the house. And he also liked the fact that he got to meet interesting people in the hospitals because he got to talk to a lot of folks along the way. And then he said, as an added benefit, he got his steps in every day because often the labs where the blood is stored are located way within, the inner bowels of hospitals. So I thought that was really interesting. But you can see that again, there's training and requirements associated with each role. And this one makes sure that blood gets to where it's needed. So another line of service, probably the one again that people associate with the Red Cross because we were founded by Clara Barton after the Civil War. So we do a lot of work with armed forces. We help them with resiliency classes before people in the service get deployed. We help their family members left behind just cope. We hook them up if they need to communicate with their loved one who might be deployed remotely and make sure that they can stay in contact with each other when needed. We do things like provide service dogs and art therapy, emotional well-being kind of care, lots of ongoing different aspects to serving the armed forces. You'll see that we've got locations throughout South Carolina in which there are veterans clinics, and we have quite a few volunteers doing support work in those clinics. And then we also have a lot of people. This is something that a lot of our students, both university and high school, we have Red Cross clubs, and a lot of them tackle special projects, and many of them feel very strongly about preparing kits, either for active duty folks or for maybe veterans who've become homeless, and also doing cards of appreciation. This is a local high school. I took this picture when they came in, and they were very excited about making cards for armed forces members who were serving for Memorial Day to thank them. So that's something ongoing that's, again, very important to us as well. So we've got quite a few behind the scenes associated roles, maintaining our buildings and our vehicles. And again, all this becomes so crucial when there is deployment happening, as happened last week. We had a lot of people scrambling just to make sure that vehicles were all ready to go, ready to roll, including our emergency response vehicles from which there's mass feeding in shelters. So our vehicles being in shape and being available is crucial to the kind of work that we do, especially when things happen so quickly. And I'm a part of volunteer services, so we're charged with both recruiting, which is what I do, although I prefer to call it matchmaking. I like to get people excited about things and they choose the role or they choose to volunteer, and I just connect them with what I feel like is interesting to them. So we go all over the place, farmers markets. This picture in the lower corner was at a recent event at a library in which there were all kinds of emergency type service people there, kind of a touch the truck kind of thing. We go to retirement communities, libraries, you name it, we are there. And I always need people to help me to make sure that I can get out and do even more presentations out in the community just to make people aware. So it's fun work. It's very easy to talk about the Red Cross. I'm very excited about it. So it doesn't feel like work to me. Um, and you can see that you won't be surprised to see this screen about what being a successful volunteer looks like. Basically, it's being able to adapt to change because things change. They change quickly. So folks have to have that resilience and also be willing to take training and just pivot as they need to. So I like to show this because this again shows you all the different places where recruitment happens or where the Red Cross has an impact. And this is at an REI store. I go to a lot of retail businesses too and set up tables. This is at a school. This one was on site after Helene. So lots of different kinds of ways to give back and volunteer, and we appreciate all of it. So, as I mentioned to you, I'm hoping that I know that you all are busy folks. If you don't have kind of the time to volunteer, I'm hoping that you might know somebody who would like to volunteer. And Dan and others, please feel free to share my information. I should have put my phone number on here, but Dan has that. But you are very welcome to share my email with anyone who might be interested. And I'm happy just to talk with them more and just tell them a little more detail about different roles so they can kind of get a sense of where they might plug in. Just tell them more about the services that the Red Cross offers. Come speak to their group or organization or neighborhood or church group. Happy to do any of those things. And just wanted to make sure that you guys were all aware that there's interest on my part in connecting with people and really appreciate the fact that you wanted to have me come speak and share information. It means a lot. And I thank you. And I'm ending on this slide. This was taken by one of the volunteers, and I just thought it was just the perfect slide. So um, I want to thank you again for having me, and I'm going to stop sharing now and see if there are any questions.
Thank you, Kathy. It was a wonderful presentation, and that's to take me as a husband back to the times where Franca was involved 100% with the Red Cross, day and night, first as a volunteer and then a staff member. So it's just bring memories back. So
Oh, I
uh,
see a question from Ken. Ken asks, how did you get involved in the Red Cross and how long? Um, Thank you for asking. It's a very, I think, kind of interesting story, a little sad for me. So I got downsized from a job very abruptly, and I was very taken aback. That had never happened to me before. And while I was searching for another job, I always think of action, as I'm sure you all do too. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give back. I want to do something. What can I do? So I immediately started volunteering in a school. And my best friend lives in North Carolina, in Durham, and she is somebody who deploys. And she has been talking to me, she had been talking to me about the Red Cross for a couple years because she loved it so much. She's done several different roles. And so I thought, oh, I'm going to do that. So I filled out an application, and the job that they matched me with was writing because I did a lot of writing in my prior job. So I became a blogger for the Red Cross. So that was my volunteer gig, was writing blogs. Usually it was like one or two a month. And I did that for a year. And then this job came open, and I thought, oh, wow, I want to do that. I want to get out there and talk to people about the Red Cross. So that was in 2024, and I blogged for like a year, and I still do them every now and then because I like doing them. But then I got involved with this role and haven't looked back. Thank you for
thank
the
you, Kathy.
question.
Thank you, Kathy. And Candace had a question, and she's saying that our members are scattered all across South Carolina. What kind of service project would you recommend that we can do remotely to support the Red Cross? Let me make a little comment first. Candace is our service project chair. So,
Great.
and she's doing a wonderful job. And thank you, Candace, for having this idea. That's a great idea.
Thank you. That's a great question. So there are a couple things. If you wanted, let me think, if you wanted to do something remotely, there are a couple of specific roles that can be done remotely for sure. And if you want to contact me, I can tell you more about those. Um, Honestly, there are, just in the interest of time, I didn't show you a map of the state, but there are two other recruiters located in different areas of South Carolina. One is in the Low Country, and the other is in the PD area in the eastern part of the state. And so, depending on where folks are located, I'd be happy to connect you with my colleagues. Because one thing that's really kind of a rewarding, but not a really heavy duty, big time commitment is doing things to help us recruit. Because it's not all staffing a table, that's a big part of it, but we need research, we need people to help us identify, hey, what are some sources for where we can go do a presentation, or can you help me distribute flyers, or all kinds of different, I call it recon, into different states, I mean, not different states, different counties, just to find more organizations that maybe might be a source for a presentation, or to help distribute flyers on our behalf. So anybody who's interested in that kind of work, we could always use help with that too, and that would be very, very welcome. And we also have chapter office. Well, that's not remote work. I was going to tell you, we also need admin help sometimes as well, like staffing our front desk. So depending on what you're interested in, what I always say is we will find a place for you, and we will, because we have lots of need. And Ken has another question. Do you use AI in your responsibilities? I use it for research, Ken. That's a great question. I found it really interesting and helpful. I don't rely on it exclusively for sure, because I'm a big boots on the ground. If I go somewhere to do a presentation, I ride around and see what else is in the area. Um, but I definitely use it to get ideas. I was using it to try to recruit folks from the Latino community, and so I used it to identify different sources that maybe I would not have thought of. So I use it, and I think my colleagues do too, as an idea generator, and it's very helpful for that, definitely. So yeah, that's probably the way I use it the most.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Kathy. I'm actually going back to Candace's question for how we can help with service. We are an e-club, so we only meet online.
Mhm.
And basically, we are currently at the moment pretty much in three different geographical areas here in South Carolina, one being close to Charlotte, so Indian Land, Fort Miller, Rock Hill area. And we have a group there. We have a group in McCormick, South Carolina, where we do a
Oh,
lot of
okay.
work with helping Title I schools and doing a really fantastic job down there. And also, we have a group that is in the Spartanburg and Greenville and Anderson area. So those are mainly, and also somebody close to Columbia. And so those are our main geographical hubs, if you would. And
That's very good to know. Thank you for that. I really appreciate that. Because I can tell you for sure, especially in McCormick County, that would be the work that would be helpful to us is just getting the word out to different community groups. I'm trying to get in front of school districts and understand maybe when school employees, district employees are getting ready to retire, maybe speaking to them and saying, hey, you're getting ready to retire. Um, you might get bored when you retire. If you do, here's some sources of different kinds of things you might like to do with us. Those are the kinds of things that I think I like to kind of, I call it building a pipeline of potential volunteers. So areas like McCormick I cover from the upstate all the way down to Columbia on the western side of the state. And so it helps extend my reach if I can work with folks who live in a certain area and do tabling things or just meet and kind of get some ideas. So yes, I'm very open to working with different members of your organization in those I just made a note of that, of the different areas where you all are located. That would be fantastic.
I'll just pop in and say that the Red Cross actually does. I live in Million. I live in Savannah Lakes Village in McCormick, and the Red Cross does do a blood drive here every other month. that they bring the blood drive out. And so I think there's one this Thursday. But there is a
Awesome.
guy here that organizes that for the community on a regular basis. So that is one of your opportunities for a presence here. Is the blood drive is a regular thing here in SLV.
That's fantastic. I know a couple folks at your in your neighborhood, and I think Dave Lorenzetti might be.
Dave Lorenzetti is the one who
yeah.
usually sends out
Yeah.
the things. Yeah,
I've
he's a good ambassador.
corresponded with him, but I haven't met him in person yet. But yeah,
he's a
so
good guy.
thanks for mentioning that. Blood drives are very, very, very helpful to us. So that's to me is just huge.
I have a question, Kathy. How do you compete with Blood Connection as far as blood drive? Because in the upstate, it's a very popular and well known. They have um, a mobile unit that goes around and do the blood drive. How the Red Cross has made that more accessible as far as service, because you mentioned that the collection points are mostly in central and lower country, and so I was curious to know if there has been any change since the last time I was involved with the Red Cross, which is 3 years ago.
No, that's a great question. Yeah, and to your point, I think that people, it's definitely harder for folks to get out in the community and get to a blood drive. And the fact that we're not a fixed site has definitely, it's a little bit harder to get people over to our, we do them at our office too, a couple times a month. But we are working actively on plans to make the Greenville chapter office a fixed site. It's a couple years out, but we understand the need for it, and we are very anxious to do that. And so we are working on plans for that right now. And I would say otherwise, though, we definitely are always happy when people give blood, no matter to whom they give it to. So that's definitely something that's, it's not an issue per se. But I will say that we really like to think that we make a big impact in the communities in lots of different ways, and we do a lot of research about donation safety, blood safety. We're constantly trying to find ways, at a really high level to make sure that people who are donating blood benefit in some aspect. And you may have seen social media posts about the fact that a lot of donors now can get some basic health screening as they go along. And we're constantly working on ways to make the whole process faster, easier, safer, beneficial to donors. So we try to make a big impact in the community, and we're working actively on the fixed site issue too. But that's again where community partnerships are very helpful. To Julia's point about being a blood drive site, that's just woohoo! Doesn't get better than that. So we're always looking for more partners in that regard, and that just helps us get out in the community more as well. And it usually leads to people being interested in asking questions. So we're working on it. It's always working and being more visible in communities and discovering ways to do things better, including blood drives. And that work is always definitely important to us.
Thank you, Kathy. And I'm sorry, my connection is a little bit unstable, so I'm coming and going, and hopefully it will hold up for another few minutes. Ken had another question, and he's asking, of course, Rotary was started in 1905 by Paul Harris in Chicago, and currently has about 101.3 million members worldwide. And Ken is curious to know, how do you think that does compare with the Red Cross? It's an interesting question.
Oh, you mean in terms of people who volunteer?
I think so.
I think so. Yeah. Basically, we are all volunteers.
The question is just, when was the Red Cross started, and how many members do you actually calculate are part of the Red Cross worldwide, both staff and volunteers.
Wow. That's a number I just don't have at my disposal, but I'm happy to find out and get back to you all. Now I'm curious too.
AI knows
It's a
the
lot.
answers.
If I can just pitch in, Kathy, I think, like you said, it's hard to put the numbers in writing, but the American Red Cross has a separate count from the International Red Cross. There are two different organizations in one, because the originally Red Cross was born in Switzerland, Geneva, during the
Yes.
convention, the Geneva Convention. It was established. The American Red Cross was established in the United States after the Civil War, but they do work together, but they are different units as far as the count of volunteers and participation. The International Red Cross is pretty much, as I'm aware of, almost in every country in the world, while the American Red Cross operates just in the United States. So
Yes.
it's a different count for how many volunteers participate in the response and preparedness and recovery.
Yes, correct. And it's called different things in different countries, as you mentioned. And if you ever want to research Clara Barton, it's so interesting how the Red Cross got started, just out of the Civil War, as Franca mentioned, and just it was a very organic evolution, and it took a while, but that's why there's still strong ties to armed force members. Candace, you have your hand
Well,
raised?
and yeah,
Can I
but
just go
before
quickly?
Candace,
Go
let
ahead.
me just
Anyway, so I was just
conclude on
really
this, and
curious, because there are a number of organizations that do collect blood, and I was just sitting here on my computer, my phone, and there's of course a wonderful app for Red Cross which tells you when the next blood drives are wherever in your zip code. And I'm just amazed at how many there are right around where we live in Indian Land. And so I hadn't donated in a while. Had kind of an odd experience with a plasma donation, which I won't discuss. But anyway, I'd love to donate blood, and this has inspired me to get back in the game. I think you can donate every 58 days or something like that, or
Yeah. And the app will tell you when you're eligible to donate. I just got my little ping. And I'm happy to send Dan a list of blood drives in the upstate, if that would be helpful for y'all to
that'd be
have.
great.
I carry
Yeah.
them around. I distribute them widely. So I'm happy to follow up and send that.
So, Kathy, I just wanted to basically go back to the previous discussion with comparing American Red Cross and International Red Cross. And as far as I know, also the two entities not only are cooperating and are both called Red Cross, but the scope of work of the two are different. In that, the European Red Cross mainly does paramedic services, whereas the American Red Cross does disaster work and disaster specialists and disaster help. And that's a very interesting how completely different they are. When we are traveling in Europe and we meet, Frank and I meet our volunteer staff at Red Cross, and we tell them that the American Red Cross mainly does disaster recovery as opposed to paramedic service. They say, "Oh, we didn't know that. We thought that's all we do is paramedic." So that I think it was very, very interesting.
That is interesting.
So anybody else has questions for Kathy?
Sorry.
Franca?
I'm on mute. Sorry. I have a quick question, Kathy. Is the Spartanburg office operating or is being shut down?
It
Because
is
that's where I live,
closed.
so
Yes, it
has
is
been
no longer
closed.
open. So the Greenville
Okay.
office is probably the closest for anybody in the upstate.
Okay.
Yeah.
do you have any information about the next fire blitz and where they be done? Because that's the fire alarm for those we just heard one of the programs, the preparedness. Are there any fire blitz planned in the upstate anywhere?
Not that I'm aware of, but I will check. I think the hurricane kind of sucked all the energy out of working on blitzes, but I will definitely check that and let you know. I'll respond. I'll send all this back to Dan Dan, you're my conduit. Since I have Dan's conduct, shipping all this stuff back to Dan. But I'm going to check right now on our shift tool and just see if there's anything coming up here in the upstate. So there's nothing posted yet, but I'm happy to check further with individuals and just see kind of what they're thinking. It depends largely, and you'll remember this, that we definitely are partnering with the emergency services teams and fire departments. So they kind of lead that. We kind of go where they lead us. So there's definitely a collaborative aspect to that. And they are the driving force. And we just make sure that we assemble the team and the materials. So we work in conjunction with them. So I will find out. I'm making notes of all these things.
Thanks so much, Kathy. And is anybody else has any question for Kathy?
I want to know who Diana's guest is. I'm jealous. I love cats.
Yes, we do too. All right then. So let's that's a beautiful cat, Diana. And so thank you again, Kathy. It was a wonderful presentation, and we have a particular heart for the Red Cross and all the work they do. And what we do as a club at the end of a presentation for each speaker, instead of giving a pen or something else, or a book, a bookkeeper, a bookmark, or something, we actually donate a book to one of our little free libraries,